In this video, in just a few moments, I'm going to share with you a very interesting signal on this chart of Bitcoin. I'm going to explain to you what this potentially means. So a very interesting update here on Bitcoin. Stay tuned for that. Before I go into that, I just want to make sure I mention a few things, just a quick recap on what's been happening here. So in the last video that I posted about Bitcoin, here it is, I mentioned that video towards the end that if Bitcoin were to close above the trend line, this is the trend line I drew on in the previous video, and I said if Bitcoin were to close above that trend line, we could see it move towards 6,000. And in fact, in the video after that, in the members video, so this is the members video update, I said in that video that because Bitcoin has not closed above the trend line, as long as it remains above the trend line, therefore there's a high probability of it moving towards the 6,500 levels that I'm showing here. Now, of course, Bitcoin very quickly moved above the 6,500 levels, as we have seen now, and has moved above 6,500 towards not only 6,800, but even towards the 7,500 levels at the highs here. It has given back some of that gain, by the way, as we can see on this bar today. But bottom line is here that Bitcoin has certainly seen a very parabolic and very strong move to the upside. One thing I should also mention here as well, and it's worth pointing this out, that in the last couple of months, in the last few months, these pulse signals on the daily and the 4-hour time frames have been absolutely beautiful. Take a look at this. The pulse signal that fired back in March, as you can see right there, when the red dot turned to blue dot with positive momentum. And you can see as long as the positive momentum pushed higher, Bitcoin also moved higher. And by the way, this is how you know when the pulse signal ends, when you get two consecutive dark green bars like that, okay? And look at this new pulse signal that fired off just in the beginning of May, as you'll see it right here. So pulse signal fired off right here to the upside. We can see momentum was pushing to the upside right here. And this actually pushed Bitcoin, momentum here pushed Bitcoin from 5,200 to the levels we've seen recently. By the way, here's what's interesting. If I switch this to a 4-hour time frame, get this, 4-hour time frame is even more beautiful. So as you can see here on the 4-hour time frame, pulse signal fired in the beginning of May, right there. This pushed Bitcoin up to almost 5,500. We had another signal. We had two pulse signals that fired off here, as you'll see here. What's interesting about this is the first signal didn't do much, but the second signal, as you can see, when this red dot turned to blue, and you can see the Bitcoin then surged from about 5,800, eventually to the levels we saw just recently. By the way, this pulse signal has not yet dissipated. The momentum has certainly been very powerful, but the pulse has not yet diminished. We need to wait for two consecutive dark green bars to show that this pulse has actually dissipated. And by the way, because of the strong upward momentum on Bitcoin, I actually opened a long position, a small long position on Bitcoin, as you can see here, which has been doing quite nicely so far. And I'll be closing this position probably tomorrow or in the next few days when I get the exit signal. All right, guys, let's go now to this chart. I want to show you here. Let's go to the weekly chart. Now, the reason why I want to show you this time frame chart of Bitcoin and the signal on this time frame is because of something that has not happened probably since 2015. So I'll explain to you what it means. Let me first of all mention to you what I have on my chart. I have actually a few moving averages. The black line that you see here, the black line is a 50 simple moving average on the weekly time frame. The purple line is a 55 EMA, 55 exponential moving average. Yellow line, or the orange line I should say, is the 100 EMA, and the blue line is the 21 EMA. But what's interesting are these three moving averages that you're seeing here. So these are the three I want to focus on in this video. The 50 simple moving average, the black line, the 55, the purple line, and the 100, okay, these three. Now, let me explain to you why these moving averages are now significant on this weekly time frame. You see, last week when Bitcoin closed above its 50 and 55 moving averages, I said this was potentially significant. Here's why. Bitcoin has now closed, in fact, very likely it's going to, by the end of today, it's going to close twice on the weekly time frame above these moving averages. Okay, again, the 50, 55, and the 100 moving averages on the weekly time frame. Why is that significant? Because let's go back to the year 2015. And this will become very clear, okay? In fact, let's just scroll back. Okay, here it is. Notice that this was the last bear market of Bitcoin, the one that pretty much dragged from the year 2013, 14, and of course ended, bottomed out in the year 2015, as you can see right there. So that was the bear market of that previous, of those previous years. Now, when in the year 2015 Bitcoin bottomed out, look what happened next. You will see something interesting. On the first attempt, when Bitcoin rallied, it came up to these averages. It came up to the 55, There it is. In fact, let me just put a circle around this right here. Notice, on the first attempt, Bitcoin failed to get anything going above these averages. So you can see it came up to the averages. It came to the 55, 100, and the 50 moving averages. Right there, it failed, and guess what? It then dropped lower. But look what happened on the second attempt, as you will see here. So you can see it raced above the 50 moving average, and then it closed above the 55, the 100, and of course the 50 moving averages. And look what happened after that. Skyrocketed. Look familiar? So notice what happened. A very parabolic move, similar to what we're seeing right now. And in fact, Bitcoin pretty much moved from about a 200 region, 240 region to, about $500, you can see right there. But look what happened after that. This is what's really interesting. Bitcoin, after the parabolic move that we saw right there, notice what it did. After that strong, massive move up to $500, it pretty much gave all of it back. Look at that. It retraced very nastily. Okay? Very nasty movement to the downside. But look where it stopped. This is where it gets interesting. So yes, we did see Bitcoin close above the 50 simple moving average, above the 55, above the 100, and a huge parabolic move. And then within a week or so, Bitcoin pretty much gave all of those gains back and pulled back. Where did it pull back to? This is what's interesting. It pulled back to the 55 and the 100 moving averages. Now, it didn't come all the way back down to the black line, the 50 simple moving average, but it did at the very least come and test the 100 and the 55 exponential moving averages. That's the orange and the purple line you see right there. And this is what's interesting. What's interesting is what it did next. It held these levels, and then bounced. And that, by the way, signaled the start of the bull market from 2015 that lasted all the way to 2017. As you can see right here, look what happened after that. Pretty much started the bull market rally that started from there. Yeah, you can see right there. So this was a very important clue. As you can see, this is not insignificant. What happened in 2015, and again, history does not always repeat itself, but it does rhyme, as the saying goes. You know, history does rhyme. So if it's not exactly 100% similar, there are similarities. So just to recap, on the first attempt, Bitcoin failed to get above these key moving averages in 2015. On the second attempt, it succeeded. 2 consecutive closes, parabolic surge, retracement, pulled back to the 55 and the 100 moving averages. It bounced off those levels, and that's the important thing, the bounce. Okay, and that could potentially signify a potential bull market. All right. Now, I know some people have already made their minds up that we've already entered the bull market. That's fine. But the bottom line is this. We've seen historically that statistically Bitcoin, after a strong parabolic move, sees a strong retracement. By the way, something very similar to this happened also in 2012 after the other bear market that occurred in 2010-11. And by the way, this doesn't just happen in Bitcoin. It does happen in other markets too. Happens in gold, happens in stock markets. So these patterns do repeat themselves across other markets too. So what does this mean for Bitcoin now? What potentially could happen next is this. Well, we've seen now Bitcoin make 2 consecutive closes above the 50 simple moving average and the 55 and the 100 exponential moving average. All right. Now, the bottom line is this. The question is, will we now see some kind of retracement? The balance of probabilities suggests that some kind of retracement, some kind of pullback down to the 50 and the 55 moving averages are probable. Of course, it doesn't have to happen. There's no guarantee it's going to happen. But again, statistically and historically, this usually happens. We've seen before how markets move above their 55, 100 moving averages, and then after a while come back and retrace back down to test those levels. Okay, and actually, even in Fibonacci analysis, if you consider Fibonacci analysis, a Fibonacci retracement from this low to this high. Now, assuming that's the high there, we don't know. But assuming that's the high for the moment, even on Fibonacci analysis, you can see that's the 38.2% retracement at 5,970, the 50% retracement at 5,460, and the 61.8%, the golden ratio retracement at nearly $5,000, as you can see right there. Okay, so the probabilities are there for some kind of potential pullback down to test these Fibonacci levels and also the moving averages that we just mentioned here. Okay, the 100 moving average, the 55 and the 50 simple moving average. So if history repeats itself, or if it rhymes with the past, there's a probability we could see Bitcoin making a retracement move to test these moving averages or these Fibonacci levels. And this is what we're looking for, by the way. This is what we're looking for. Let's just get rid of these Fibonacci levels. let's say, for example, we see some kind of retracement. Let's say we see a potential retracement back down to test these moving averages here at these levels, okay, near the 5,000 levels. Okay, now here's the thing. If Bitcoin holds these levels and bounces off these levels, that could signify a potential bull market. All right, guys? So that's very interesting indeed. But there's a but coming. If, however, and this is very interesting, if Bitcoin does not hold, if it doesn't hold these support levels, and if instead it moves below these key averages, and especially if it moves below the 5,000 levels, then there's potential for further downside, maybe towards the 4,000 or 4,500 levels. All right, guys. So that means these key levels, these moving averages, are not going to play a very important part for Bitcoin, because we can now use them as a measurement of a potential bull market, or if indeed of a sustained bull market or not. So going back to the daily time frame chart, let's go to the daily time frame. So we've seen these parabolic moves before in Bitcoin. We've seen them happen in 2015, 16, 17, and as I'm sure you've seen for yourself, these parabolic movements, like the one we saw before in 2016 and 17 and so on, these parabolic movements unfortunately do not end very well. They don't have a happy ending, as we can see here. So bottom line is this: we just have to be patient, and let's see how Bitcoin plays this out. We want to see when this parabolic movement eventually is going to fade, eventually it's going to run out of steam, and let's see where the retracement comes down to. The balance of probabilities suggests that we need to pay very close attention to the weekly averages that I just mentioned. Again, these key levels that we saw right here near the 5,000, 5,200 levels. And let's see if a potential retracement down to these levels, will it hold these support levels and bounce off, or will it go right through them? In which case that could open a different kind of scenario.